Looks like it's working. Hello, welcome everybody to today's panel discussion. It's one we're calling Engineering the Impossible, How Technology is Building a New Era in Energy. Sorry for being a couple of minutes late, just brief technical difficulties, but we're on track now, and we aim to focus today's presentation on the present day and future work taking place in the worlds of energy, technology, and innovation. My name is Matt Chester. I'm going to be the moderator for this exciting conversation. Today's event is powered by and brought to you by a collaboration between Saviant Consulting, Videni Energy, and Chester Energy and Policy. So on behalf of all of these great partners, we thank you for joining us today. And we have two incredible guests with us for this conversation, each bringing unique and game-changing perspectives on the intersection of energy and technology. And I'm thrilled to dive into this discussion with them. First, we have Ali DeGunther, Vice President of Strategy at Reflect Orbital. Ali has spent over a decade in the renewable energy industry, working on large-scale solar and energy storage projects worldwide. Her experience has led her to a strong belief in the need for 24/7 renewables. And at Reflect Orbital, she's working on some groundbreaking innovations that can make that a reality. So thank you for being here today, Ali.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
I am too. And we also have with us Anubhav Dwivedi, CEO and founder of Saviant Consulting. Anubhav leads a company that builds intelligence into industrial devices, smart machines, and field operations using AI, machine learning, digital twins, and more. Anubhav is well positioned to speak on the world of innovation on the heels of the Saviant team's recent securing of several prestigious innovation awards, including Best Company for Industrial Innovation in Services from CII and one of the top 20 most innovative companies in India. These rewards reinforce what's already well established, which is Saviant's role as a leader in pushing the envelope with digital technologies for the industrial engineering space. So I'm excited to hear Anubhav's take on what innovation means in today's energy and technology landscape. So welcome as well to the conversation, Anubhav.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me. Hi, Ali. Very good to meet you.
Hello. Very good to meet you.
Great. And like I said, the goal of today's discussion is to explore how technology and innovation are shaping the energy industry, from large-scale solutions Ali is working on to the intelligence and efficiency that Anubhav's team is bringing to industrial applications. We're going to focus on a few different themes throughout today's panel, pulling in both Ali and Anubhav to share their insights and perspectives. And I'll also note that this is a live event, so we encourage questions or participation from the audience. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat function that I'll be monitoring, and we'll pull those in as relevant. And any particularly good questions, we do aim to feature in future articles, video clips of today's session. So just to give you some extra motivation to participate, you could be seeing yourself there. But with all that said, let's dive into it. And before really diving into the meat of the matter, I want to give you both a chance to give a bit of context on the groundbreaking work you're each doing that I sort of alluded to. So let's start with you, Ali. Can you just give us that overview of what is Reflect Orbital, what is the work you're doing, and what's the problem that you're solving in the energy industry?
Yeah, Reflect Orbital is a satellite constellation company, and our satellites are basically large flat mirrors, and those mirrors we communicate with to redirect light to sell light at night or sunlight at night. The more satellites that we have in space, the more brightness and duration we can offer. In today's discussion, I'm going to talk mostly about what that means for the energy industry, but we also have a lot of different lighting solutions across unique experiences, civilizational lighting, industrial lighting, construction lighting, etc. But today we'll talk mostly about the energy industry, where it's something that we think is going to enable clean, dispatchable, and baseload renewable power.
Yeah, that baseload renewable power is the key term there. And it might be somewhat obvious why something like 24/7 renewable is valuable or needed, but can you put some more details into why this is important, why it's such a critical challenge, and quantitatively what Reflect Orbital's approach is on delivering?
Yeah, so we think this is important because, being in the energy industry before this, or the renewable energy space specifically, I found renewables is, solar is really great. And then you kind of max out at a certain penetration level once you've added enough renewables to the grid. And you can add batteries and you can get an extra, 15 to 30% on your capacity factor with a large battery. But you're still total at like 65% capacity factor, which is pretty far from like 90 to 95% is what we'd consider like base load power. So if you want to get to that base load power, you need to kind of bring something else in there. And different storage technologies always have trade-offs between dispatchability or capacity or round trip efficiency. And so we're really focused on enabling that. And why do we think that's so important? Well, we found that you can really, if you really want to replace fossil fuels and that's your mission, you need to offer an alternative that's just as good, if not better, to the existing solution that's in place. Otherwise, we didn't feel like it's a technology solution that's advancing society. And so Reflect Orbital is focused on bringing that 24/7 truly base load alternate power solution by reflecting light onto solar farms at night.
And can you mentioned the energy storage. Is what you guys putting together, is it a competition for energy storage? Is it complementing it? Is there room for both of those approaches?
Yeah. So it's actually a really common question we get. We describe Reflect Orbital as being very synergistic with energy storage solutions. So energy storage solutions are going to add, 15 to 40%, but they're really meant more for, 4 hours, 3 hours of duration. And so we see our solution as being potentially really great for 4 hours after sunset and 4 hours before sunrise, because it catches it on both sides of the sun's or the Earth's rotation. But there's still that kind of 4 hours in the middle of the night, midnight to 4 a.m., which we think batteries could do an awesome job of filling in the gap there to together get to 95% solution. So we're not trying to replace batteries. We actually see our solution as being very synergistic with batteries and kind of both uniquely and quite well filling in the gaps between each other.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And now Anubhav, I want to pull you in, and that's quite a story to follow up on, reflecting light into the ground during the nighttime. But can you take us from the stars where Ali's work is to the industrial floor where Saviant is currently making waves and helping energy operations companies compete with AI and digital tools?
Yeah, sure. Well, our customers are mostly manufacturing for machinery and equipment, and they give these equipments to large industries like energy or oil and gas or environment. And I think our job is to help them build these AI and digital solutions so that their hardware is more intelligent, they are self-learning digital systems smart, and these systems are the ones that help predict problems. They reduce waste. They give us safer, cheaper, economical options to doing things like Ali's team is trying to do. Uh, and with new technologies, there's more complexity. There are new types of hardware. There's new type of data. There's language. So my team job is to basically reduce complexity from these systems, make them simple to build, to use. And I think when we talk a little bit more today, we'll understand how complexity creeps into every system that is trying to make the world better, and how we are trying to make sure that simplicity always remains the focus.
Absolutely. And I mentioned in the intro a number of awards that you and your team have recently gotten for innovation. So first off, congratulations to you and Saviant for that recognition. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that led to those specific awards?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, yes, this award it's an industrial innovation award, and I think it represents the industrial framework that we have built, which allows us to keep things simple. When you're trying to operate in the industrial world where there are too many moving pieces, there's machinery, there's data, there's operations. You basically try to use a framework that allows you to produce success again and again, and it is not that easy. So from our experience, when we built this framework, it allowed us to make sure that all the projects that we were taking up were on the mark. They were producing the desired results, and that is what the industrial innovation panel found useful, that this framework really allows you to create ROI from the investments, and make sure the projects always deliver. Ali probably has a much more difficult job to do when they are out there in the space doing things. We're not doing that difficult a job. It's just that we're trying to marry the technologies that are available, the opportunities that are available, and the human intelligence that we all possess to bring together and make sure we are able to solve the problems in the right amount of time and effort.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I know you have a background in decision science, platform-based architecture, and really just a passion for technology. I mean, I saw your eyes light up as Ali's talking about what they're doing. So, how do all these perspectives shape the approach you take to innovation in energy and in industrial technology?
Good question, Matt. Like I said, with every initiative you take to improve the world, complexity creeps in, and I think there's more data, there are more devices, there's more effort, and decision science always is a function of, can we make better decisions, can we make faster decisions, can we make economical decisions, and there's no end to how much you can make better decisions. With this whole AI thing now available, you're as intelligent as the question you ask, not the answer that you get. And I think with the platform-based architectures, we're basically trying to reduce time to market. So when you have platforms already available and they're scalable, flexible, modular, you make use of the right platforms and build on top of it so that value is delivered faster to the market, and you're not constrained by the technology and learnability and stuff. So I guess those two things are super important to deliver value faster to whoever is the consumer that you're serving.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so now we've got a bit of an intro and a taste of the work both of you are doing. So I want to tie it together. What's the intersection here? And both of you are working on cutting edge technology, but in very different domains. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you see the biggest opportunities for collaboration between something like space-based energy solutions and the world of AI-driven industrial intelligence. Is there an overlap in the areas that your teams are working on?
Yeah, certainly. I think it kind of goes back to the same problem, and that's how to optimize the delivery and the consumption of energy. I think that has enormous impacts across climate and also just as well as our civilization, in terms of how much energy we're using and how we're using that energy. And so I think it's the same equation really that we're trying to optimize around.
Good point. If I had to add to what Ali said, I think while we have the technology available, and I think the work that Ali's team is doing, it is obviously to serve the human lives on the planet, and anything that we can do to make sure that that can happen in a predictable manner, safe, economical manner, the technology should be used. So in my mind, whatever Ali is doing is something that the industry definitely needs. We all need, and I see that we are probably bringing better, simpler, faster ways to make Ali more successful, and I think that's what I would continue to look for.
Yeah, no, and I love to see the overlap in places that maybe you wouldn't expect it, because when any industry, but especially technology and energy, gets too siloed, that's where you're missing opportunities to collaborate and highlight efficiencies. And I think another interesting tie, when I listen to the work that each of you are doing, it's in one of the ever-present problems in the energy sector, which is how quickly power demand is exploding. With AI and data centers, we're just seeing load forecasts grow and grow, and we're trying to meet those with what are naturally limited, finite resources. So I see Reflect Orbital trying to unlock otherwise missed generation, when the sun is shining on the wrong side of the planet, while Saviant is trying to maximize output for industrial engineering companies and energy operators. So when you think about that challenge of growing demand, how do you see each side of that challenge evolving in the coming years, and how, again, your current solutions might solve for that, and where there's opportunity for even more innovation and new ways of thinking?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in first. So
Please.
I think I'm very bullish on energy demand continuing to rise. I think energy demand has outpaced supply so much so that even with innovations in like chip efficiency in data centers and things like that, you're still going to find that there's going to be kind of an ever-pacing need to meet that demand. I always say, even if you can do more with each kilowatt hour, you're going to want to use more kilowatt hours. Fundamentally, building innovative solutions and expanding technology will consistently require more and more energy. There's some interesting studies that look back even hundreds of years that kind of demonstrate humans will use just about as much energy as they can use consistently. And that's a way that we power innovation, we power building, we kind of power our world. So I think both sides of the equation will become immensely important. I think you'll just continue to have this growing demand for more and more energy and coming up with better ways to supply it and better ways to consume it.
Yeah, yeah. I think Ali made a good point that whatever studies she was referring to, humans will consume whatever energy is available to them. And I think the technologies that we have available, if they can allow us to predict from where the demand will come and how quickly we can supply and meet the demand, how efficiently, it reduces the load on the storage systems. We don't have to really worry about how much can we store, how much can we distribute. So if we are able to basically predict and meet the demand and supply efficiently through the use of AI, through the use of data, digital, I think that will serve energy producers like Ali and team very well in reducing the load on the grid, transmission, distribution, storage. And I think that's probably what data can help a lot with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's how do we get the most juice out of our squeeze, and it is interesting to think that, will we just continue to use any energy that's available to us, and is that the goal? And that's, I like how Ali positioned it. It's like, well, that's how we innovate. So, thinking about innovation and the projects we're talking about today, calling them innovative is almost an understatement. But I think both of you are positioned very well to speak to the spirit of innovation and how going outside of the status quo or the norms creates new challenges, and what are the right strategies when it comes to taking an innovative idea and then scaling it. So I'd love to hear each of you kind of reflect on how to do that, maybe any advice you have for others in the tech or the energy related fields to really lean into innovation. And maybe I'll go to Anubhav first for this one.
Yeah, man, it's a good question in context of what Ali just highlighted. Innovation a lot of times is construed as doing something that has never been done before, but in my mind, innovation is solving problems. And if you can solve problems better than others, faster than others, more economically than others, that's good innovation. Like it's not like solar power has never been produced before, but Ali's team is trying to do something that probably is better than what other systems might be, or faster than other systems, or more efficient. So in my mind, innovation is probably not a huge once in a lifetime thing that has to happen. If you take small steps, keep the focus on the problem. Like here, if the problem really is how can we make energy efficient and available to when the people need it, like Ali's use case might be that they want to make energy and lighting available to people in distress times, in places where it cannot reach possibly through the regular means, right? Maybe nobody has thought about it before, but maybe people have tried, but it was not efficient and not market facing. So if we keep the problem as the focus and try to solve it step by step, take the first step, use a little bit of design thinking, keep the end in focus and take the right steps, it helps a lot. And I think I'll let Ali, probably they've already done it, they're already showing how it can be done. My job is to probably do a little bit more on consulting and coaching, but I think Ali is probably more suited to deep dive into this.
Yeah, no, I think you made a lot of really great points. Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, I think the phrase relentless pursuit of better comes to mind. Just kind of that never ending pursuit of wanting to do more and wanting it to be better. Yeah, I really liked what you said on about kind of elegant solutions. And that's where you kind of have these bold ideas meeting practical innovation or executable innovation, and something that we can bring to the world. And I think Reflect has very much been founded out of that principle, and is trying to execute out of that principle of being a bold idea with a very elegant solution to bring the world an innovation that's really necessary.
Sure.
Yeah, and when you're innovating and pushing the envelope, and pardon the pun, for shooting for the stars like Ali is, I feel like there must be some amount of conflict between really thinking big and thinking new, but also trying to stay grounded in real world feasibility and adoption. If nothing else, there's financing that you need to figure out, and if people aren't on board with what your vision for innovation looks like, it can be hard to get over those hurdles. So is that a challenge that either of you have run into of figuring out how to marry the dreaming big with the real world practicality?
Yeah, I
Ali,
mean,
I'll throw it to you.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think for us, we try to stay grounded by just talking to stakeholders and customers consistently and trying to really listen. And that's kind of our own version of checks and balances, and making sure that we have that feedback loop there. You don't want to stray too far down kind of your vision without ensuring that that's a vision the world actually wants and needs and can support. And so for us, taking a step back out of Reflect and consistently talking with regulatory stakeholders and customers and partners and people like that, that's kind of how we ensure that we're getting that check-in with ourselves, and ensuring that it's an innovation that's really meant to be.
Yeah. I think Ali said it very simply. It's not probably that easy in the real world. Uh, when I say keep the focus on the problem, it's never easy, because once you start with the problem and you build a solution, you tend to become solution focused. You want your solution to become better. And I think Ali's comment was really useful, that when you keep talking to your users, learn from them, that is the only source to know whether the problem is really getting solved. And I think a lot of times, with all the right intentions, a lot of us start with the problem, but then we get too busy with the solution. We lose focus on whether the problem is really getting solved. And I think that's what, Matt, you're trying to ask, that uh, why are there adoption challenges when the initiative is good, when the problem is the right problem, when the technology is available? Why aren't the solutions able to solve the problem that we are all trying to solve? And I guess it's probably a human thing, that we get we get digressed from the problem and we get too much into the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And another area of maybe the real world downer that I have to imagine comes into play is regulation. Ali, for you, it centers in what's probably still the wild west of space regulation, but also the political arena that is energy policy. Well, Anubhav, you're helping industrial players maximize output from their equipment and operations, and maybe helping them meet their regulatory guidelines to improve efficiency. So when it comes to the regulatory side, how do each of you approach that? What's your frame of mind, and what role do you think overall regulation plays in either boosting or maybe tampering down innovative new technologies? Anubhav, why don't I start with you on this one?
Oh, okay, cool. Well, whenever you implement a solution for the enterprise who are trying to solve a problem that is, across geographies and time zones, uh, compliances and regulatory, they always play a big part. I think at the core, the core issue is that not each country or not each society thinks about the problem the same way. So what is considered appropriate in Europe may not be appropriate in Asia Pacific or in India. What is considered appropriate in China may not be useful in Africa or in US. So I think once you understand how to play correctly with the compliances, with the securities, cybersecurity protocols, government expectations, and they're all for the right reasons. But I think when we're trying to solve this big problem, we are all preoccupied with the solution we have, that we tend to miss why the governments institutionalize some of these policies, and they're for the long term. And I think that's what technology is allowing us to do. They're making sure that we keep the core of the problem in focus. We don't miss for the short term something that is that's possible in the long term. And I think probably Ali is facing that as the hard reality when they're trying to build a new solution. Uh, our job is to make sure that whatever is available in the platforms that we're using to build these solutions, we implement the right way, whether it is security, compliances, governance. But I think for a specific solution that Ali is talking, I think she will be a better person to talk about.
Yeah, thank you. I love your note that context really matters a lot, and definitely resonate with the fact that different regions really think about problems and solutions differently, and they have different kind of values. Maybe if I take a step back, our satellites, I can't think of a better example for a truly global solution than a constellation of satellites, especially with Reflect. Maybe put better is when the Texas and California and the US is in the sun. Our satellites are over here. So we always want to be serving something underneath us to have the highest utilization rate for our satellites. So we are a truly, truly global solution. We want to serve all countries everywhere. If you're just looking at the economics, you want to increase utilization, you want to serve pretty much everywhere. All that being said, yeah, we've been working across the Middle East, across APAC, across Africa, Europe, US, South America, talking to different stakeholders about Reflect. And Anubhav's totally right. Different places value different aspects of our solution in different ways. And they also have very different regulatory environments. Sometimes it's a single decision maker at the very top, and you need to get that person excited about it. And then there's your decision. Sometimes it's I would say, like the US is maybe on the other end, right? You have your federal stakeholders, your state stakeholders, your county stakeholders. There's kind of different levels of regulation that you need to approach in different ways. And so for us, I think it starts with context, understanding what's important to that particular region, understanding how their government and their regulatory system is structured and who are the key decision makers. And then we try to be really proactive. So instead of us, wanting to have this great solution and serve in a great way and then not being able to, we try to be really proactive in talking to the right people years in advance, because there's always unknown unknowns, right? So we try to start the conversation years in advance, and we always, by spending more time in that place, by having more of those conversations, we seem to pretty much always learn something new and be able to tailor our solution in a more intelligent way. So I think for us, it's about context and understanding the decision maker and what's important to them, and then just being proactive in terms of reaching out and going there and spending time there and making sure that you're learning as much as you can about potentially where you want to serve.
Yeah,
Ali,
yeah, makes sense.
sorry, Matt, I just wanted to complete what she was saying. Ali, you made a very good point. Since you're in a position where you guys are doing something that hasn't been done before and maybe not successfully, so in the context of regulatory compliances and governance, when something has not been done before, how do you anticipate regulatory compliances? Like, space travel didn't exist before. So when people try to do space travel, uh, the governments didn't know what's the right. Are you facing those kind of questions today when you try to anticipate what rules do you follow and what rules do you help create when they don't exist?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big part of the proactivity is the fact that if something doesn't existed before, by being proactive, we can help write the script, write the regulation on it. We can become a subject matter expert for them to kind of inform their opinion on what it should look like. And then we also prevent surprises on our end, right? If we're part of it with them and we're kind of working on it together as a partner, you can have more of an influence. You can understand kind of more of their information. But I mean, you're right. It can be a little bit tricky to predict how different governing bodies react to sunlight at night and kind of their concerns around it. So I think for us, it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict, but it's easy to just start the conversation and ask them what they're thinking. And so that's kind of the approach we take, is we try to be like really upfront and have that kind of consistent dialogue back and forth. we found that trying to predict without having that engaging conversation was actually quite challenging. Really hard to know exactly what direction people are going to take it in, especially with changing administrations too, right? I mean, you predict like how the Biden administration might react to something, and then you're left with the Trump administration, and it was tricky as well with that.
Yeah, you answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ali, beyond just the regulatory side, I'm curious, what the reaction is, and maybe you could speak to the relationship of the traditional terrestrial energy solutions with this emerging field that you guys are kind of pioneering of space-based technologies. How do they relate to each other? Do they understand and buy in right away? What are those type of conversations you're having with kind of peers in the industry rather than the regulatory side?
Yeah, I mean, I think our peers in the industry see us a little bit similar to most innovative energy solutions. I think there's some differentiators with us in the sense that we have this whole interesting lighting industry that will start serving before energy just because it requires less duration and less brightness. Why do they care about that? They care about that because Reflect will be financeable before it starts serving the energy industry, which is a pretty big game changer in the energy industry to have an innovative technology solution that doesn't need to be financed on. And so for them, it just significantly de-risks actually being able to use it. There's a lot of really cool energy solutions, but then you go to energy financiers and you try to get it financed, and it's really challenging because energy financiers are generally conservative. So I think that they find that to be like kind of an interesting play on us, but ultimately, I think we're all part of the same ecosystem. I think most people in the energy industry have really come to appreciate that there isn't going to be a silver bullet solution. I mean, I definitely, I feel like after 5 or so years in the energy industry, that really resonated with me. You kind of go to a dinner party, you tell people you work in renewables, and they're like, okay, so is the grid going to be 100% solar? And you're like, well, there's, and I think I saw a few technologies kind of come up, and then like, I think we have a tendency, maybe they get a little overhyped, and then you kind of realize, okay, this isn't probably going to be our end all be all, solve all of our problems. And so I try to remind myself of that and have, ultimately you want a total energy mix that's going to be kind of diverse and hopefully 100% clean. And I think Reflect can really elevate solar and allow solar to play such a bigger role in that total energy mix. But I also ultimately think that there isn't a silver bullet solution to our energy, and that we're all part of the same ecosystem. And so I think we have a pretty good relationship with other kind of terrestrial energy solutions in the sense of we're all for the most part trying to move in the same direction of having a clean, diverse, dispatchable total energy mix that's more abundant.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Ali, I want to pull in an audience question I see here, just kind of on the logistics of what you guys are doing. Joseph, I don't know, Beam asked, is it one satellite per client? Can one satellite focus on multiple geographic locations simultaneously? What's the actual logistics there? If you could walk us through it a little bit.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So that's when we say we're a constellation company, a satellite constellation company, as opposed to a satellite company. It just means we have a lot of satellites up there that we operate as an entire constellation. The operations is really interesting. So the Earth is turning like this, right? Sun would be over here. The Earth is turning like this. Our satellites are going like this. They're always in the sun. We call it a sun synchronous orbit. And what does that mean? That means the satellites are constantly moving as the Earth is moving. And so you are having this trade-off between satellites in the same orbit ring. And then you're going to have multiple rings stacked against each other. So there's definitely going to be a trade-off as the Earth is turning between satellites in this ring to satellites in this ring to satellites in this ring. All of that to say, the satellites themselves are constantly moving. The Earth is moving. And so the operations behind operating thousands of satellites is something we use. We're going to intend to use pretty advanced software to operate so many different moving parts and pieces in that way successfully. So we operated as an entire constellation together, and you're going to have both multiple satellites concentrating on the same spot to increase brightness, as well as handoffs between rings of satellites to give you that increase in duration.
It's fascinating. It definitely does ring a little bit sci-fi, but it's cool to see you guys doing it. Anubhav, I want to turn to you now and kind of ask you to bust out your crystal ball or your tea leaves, whatever you use to look to the future. And do you have in mind what you think the next steps of digital and intelligent innovation will be that are going to particularly transform the industrial sector and its energy use?
Well, the speed at which things are moving these days, Matt, the crystal ball is probably just a 3 months, 6 months crystal ball. Uh, but I guess a lot of the stuff that we've seen in last 1 or 2 years, uh, I would say that there wouldn't be any limitations on how much we can do in the industrial space because of energy constraints, except probably wars. But if we're talking about energy constraints as one of the reasons why we can't build powerful AI models and LLM models and data centers and cryptocurrency infrastructure, that probably is something that we'll be able to sort out through maybe becoming more accurate in predicting the supply and demand and sources and availability. But I guess people like Ali who are trying to do this. There are more channels of energy today. There is hydrogen, hydrogen as a source of energy. There is batteries, reusable batteries as the source of energy. Sun source, definitely what Ali is doing. I think a lot of that will become possible in terms of if we are able to solve a lot of these problems of storage, distribution, transmission, and consumption. Energy production may not be the limitation, and I think I see that that should happen in the next 3 to 5 years. We have enough technology available in terms of AI, ML, data platforms, but I guess we'll probably become more conscious consumers of these technologies. Ali, what's
Absolutely.
your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I really resonated with what you said at the beginning of the not having to have much more than a 6 month crystal ball beyond kind of general trends. Yeah, I mean, our society is just moving so fast these days. And so I think keeping up with the movement of society has less to do with careful and meticulous planning and more being flexible. And kind of constantly taking that information in and understanding how that impacts you or changes your strategy. And it really is, I feel like it's become a bit of a daily exercise of just kind of staying up to date on all the different trends and announcements, things like that, and understanding how that pivots. But I mean, fundamentally, I agree. I know we talked about at the beginning, like, I think energy demand will continue to increase, and that one I feel confident in saying will extend over several decades. But yeah, it's hard to get too precise these days.
Yeah, so maybe rather than looking too far ahead, Anubhav, I see a question from the audience that gives you an opportunity to reflect, which is, are there specific industries or sectors that you've seen that are surprisingly quick to adopt, the digital or the intelligent driven energy solutions? Where have those easier or quicker wins come in?
Uh, I'm not sure if there are easier wins. Every area where you try to do something new, it's always difficult to understand how to meet the demand and solve the problem. But I think where there are less moving pieces, where there is less risk in deploying something, where human lives are not at stake, or our societies or people are not at risk, probably yes. When you talk about cybersecurity and banking, probably it's a very high risk scenario to try something that has not been tried before. But if it is about transportation, moving places from A to B in less time, more efficiently, maybe yes. So I guess where there are less moving pieces, not like Ali, where there are thousands of satellites moving in space in tandem with Earth's position, that's probably a lot of moving pieces. May not be the easiest place to solve the problems. But I guess maybe things that we want to be more efficient. Transportation definitely is one. Retail, e-commerce, where our lives could be better, faster, more economical. But wherever there is a risk to lives or our quality of lives, maybe it's not that easy. Especially when there is hardware, when there is data, when there is security, it may not make it so easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, the kind of the final question I have before turning it over to some more audience Q&A, and I think it's a question that's relevant to each of you. But from the progress you've already made, what do you think are the key lessons needed for others who have these types of big ideas? We talked about, kind of overcoming the need to be specifically beholden to what's been done before, but how do you overcome early inertia and go from idea to implementation? Ali, I'll let you start there.
Yeah, I think someone early in my career once told me that you should always try to be the dumbest person in the room. And I thought that was always very good advice. It's always a really great sign, and when you're like, wow, everyone around me is so smart. So I think there's just this simple piece of advice of just talking to really smart people, sharing ideas, collaborating, and getting feedback. And then the second one is to take small steps consistently. Another kind of metaphor I really like is you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I think especially working in the energy industry and now in the space industry, really resonates. A lot of times those solutions are expensive and big and complicated and take years and years to kind of come to fruition. And so I think it's really just one bite at a time. So to take small steps kind of consistently is something that's been really helpful.
Wonderful.
Well, I think Ali said it all. Matt, the question that you started with this session, like, what's the problem you guys are solving? If the focus is on solving the problem, we don't get too focused or too deep into the solution and get self-obsessed with the solution. Making sure the problem is really getting solved and keep taking feedback from the users, from the consumers. That always keeps things simple and grounded. Like Ali said, you don't have to be the smartest person all the time. So keeping the problem as the focus always helps. But it's easier to say. I mean, if it was so easy, we wouldn't be sitting here and talking about advice for others who are trying to do it. So I would say what Ali said makes a lot of sense. Just don't be the smartest person all the time. Just listen, learn from others, really understand what's the problem, and then get busy solving it.
Then I think I'm doing something right today because I think you guys are the smartest people in the room here. So I appreciate everything you're sharing with us. Covered a lot of ground today, and I want to give another push to the audience. We want to hear from you. If you have any questions for Ali or Anubhav, submit them in the chat. I do see it looks like Deepti Siwak actually it looks like a question for each of you. So I'll go one at a time. The first is again getting Ali more practical. Can you give us a timeline for when we're going to see the Reflect Orbital technology in action and when we might see that first major deployment?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of the timing, we are going to launch our first satellite in Q2 next year. So in about a year from now, we're going to be launching up our first satellite. Then we're going to go on kind of, we are going to have commercial demonstrations of that from kind of a marketing. We're going to do a lot of testing on it. So what does the light look like? I think ultimately we can do a lot of modeling here, and modeling is something we do a ton of. It's incredibly important to us, but there's nothing quite like having a satellite up there and being able to get the data from that. And I'm sure we'll get a ton of data, even about the light, but also just about how the satellite is designed. We'll get like vibrational data from sensors that we have in our satellite bus and things like that, so that we can actually improve the design. So all that to say, mission one is to launch, get a satellite up there and working to get data from it. And then you take all of that data and you improve your design. You make the satellite lighter weight. You make it cheaper. You oversize this less. So after that, the year following, so in 2027, we want to launch a few dozen. And then once you really get the design nailed down over time, then you want to launch a few hundred, and then you want to launch a few thousand. So we kind of have this staged approach. So I would say expect our first satellite next year, and then expect us to start serving more industrial lighting applications in about 2 years. And then we're aiming to start serving the energy industry in 2030 to have enough satellites up there to really serve the energy industry in a meaningful way.
Amazing. Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff ahead that we'll definitely keep an eye out for. And then Anubhav, looked like Deepti's second question was if you could talk about some real world examples where maybe this digitalization has succeeded in improving efficiency, reducing, waste, and kind of, can you give us some real world examples?
Well, yes, several of them. One of our customers in the US, they make these large induction furnaces, and these induction furnaces like big 3 or 5 story buildings, right? And it's not easy to control what happens inside the furnace, high temperatures, pressures. So if you have the digital technologies available, you're able to remotely monitor the conditions inside the furnace and make sure that they don't go out of control and become a risk to human lives and infrastructure and property. So a lot of the data that is available, like Ali was saying, that once they have the satellites up there, the sensors will start to send the data and they make the equipment more efficient. It's practically the same thing. You learn from the instrument, you learn from when they break down, start to predict when the maintenance is required so that you're not late in the maintenance, and hence it makes uncontrollable outcomes around you. And it's all happening now. It's just that it's not happening in the quantum of results that you can see and touch and feel, because these are our industrial applications. We don't see them in our daily lives because industries are like outside the city and not everyday use. But they're all happening, and they all work. You can predict the outcome as accurately as possible. You can save human lives. You can. I wish they could predict a jungle fire and wildfire like in California. And I wish they could tell us how to prevent and control them. But I'm sure with technology, even that is going to happen. But today, at a certain level, we are able to do a lot of this predictable future predictions about when things are going to go wrong and how to control the outcome. And I think furnaces is the first example I could think of where it's too much beyond our control to do anything manually, but I think data allows to do a lot of that.
Awesome. Yeah. And sorry, go ahead,
Definitely.
Ali.
I was gonna say, definitely resonate with that. I totally wish we could go up to space and fix something. If it, like there's just like a bolt needs to be tightened or something, it would make our job so much easier if I could just, go up there and make that adjustment. So yeah, data is so important in environments where you can't easily manually go and manipulate or access.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we have time for this one last question from the audience, which looks to be directed at Ali from Bhushan, who is just curious the first changes or the first few changes that you're excited to see once Reflect Orbital is live in the sky. What's kind of the hallmark that you're looking for when that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I'll answer it in two different ways. So the first, from like a commercial standpoint, I mean, almost all of our commercial applications are pretty like life-changing, industry-defining. I feel like from like marketing standpoint, even this is the first time ever people are going to be able to interact with a satellite. I mean, how cool is that? We have satellites that are up there and working, but all the satellites that are up there and working, the kind of way that they're working is actually when you don't know that they're working, right? They're kind of out of sight, out of mind, and that means it's doing a good job. And so for us, I think that's going to be pretty incredible for people to, have this relationship with space. From a search and rescue standpoint, you're going to be able to save lives. From industrial lighting, you're going to be able to make lighting more sustainable and produce more. From an energy standpoint, you're going to have more clean energy. So that's like, the commercial side of things. I'm incredibly excited to see how that changes the world. From an engineering standpoint, in terms of like, what we're gonna work on the vehicle, I think right now, we've intentionally, because it's expensive and an investment to get something up into space, we've intentionally oversized a lot of the components of our satellite, knowingly, because we're putting all the effort in designing to get something up there. It would be a really big shame if our reaction wheels just weren't quite big enough to steer the vehicle, but everything else is working on it, right? And so from an engineering standpoint, I'm excited to get the practical data back so we can start to kind of undersize some of that, and that'll save us ultimately in costs as well as weight over time. And so I think there's going to be a lot of really cool innovation we can get by just having that data back.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to like I said, watch and see how that goes. So you'll have to keep us updated. But yeah, I think we're rounding down to the end of today's discussion. So before we wrap up, I do just want to formally thank both of you, Ali and Anubhav, for sharing your insights and expertise with all of us today. And it is clear that the intersection of energy and technology, it's evolving rapidly, and innovations like those from Reflect Orbital, from Saviant, and from everyone else working in this space, it represents the variety of great minds that are pushing this industry forward. There's no complacency here. So before we close, I just want to hear a final thought from each of you, and it's somewhat of a softball, but what excites you most about the future of energy and technology? What really gets you out of bed, gets you energized? And Ali, I'll let you start first with that one.
I think it might actually be what solving the energy solution means for people. I think I see, I talked a little bit earlier about we need energy to build and to innovate. And so in my mind, if you imagine a world where there is clean and abundant energy, where you don't have to feel bad about using more energy or using energy to build something or to do something, what does that mean for society as a whole? And I'm very excited about that. And I see, solving the energy problem as something that we can do.
Yeah, I love that, Ali. Uh, I think I would like to just say what Ali said. It's just so precise. Uh, you know, we have the technology available, Matt, today. It's a choice we can make about how much we can be passionate about solving some problems that are worth solving. Innovation comes from finding the right problem. You don't just become innovative by thinking about it. So picking the right problems and creating the right resources around it and solving it. I think innovation is probably like an outcome or a result of doing things like Ali is doing, and I see that happening a lot with people like Ali, and even you, Matt. You've been around a lot of these things, so I'm pretty excited that we are in the right place. Had we been born 30 years ago, we might not be talking about these things. So it's the right time. Let's make the best use of it and solve some good problems.
Love it. That's the mic drop moment. So I'll just say thank you once again to our panelists. Thank you to our audience who was able to join us today and share their questions. If you'd like to continue the conversation, connect with Ali, connect with Anubhav on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to their respective organizations. And we appreciate your time. So we look forward to more discussions on these critical topics in the future, and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Just want to say thanks to Matt. Thanks to Anubhav. This is a wonderful discussion. Really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Thanks, Ali. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Great. Absolutely. All right. And that will conclude our stream. So thanks once again.
Thanks.